Justice David Maraga has been sworn in as the new Chief Justice, with President Uhuru Kenyatta asking him to forge better relations with the other arms of government. President Kenyatta said good relations between the judiciary, the executive and the legislature is important for a prosperous Kenya. He said Maraga's first task should be to clear the over 20,000 cases that have kept people in remand, saying justice delayed is justice denied. The new Chief Justice said he was committed to the fight against corruption. All right, we are working to bring you those happenings from State House Nairobi, and of course him making way to the Supreme Court. And immediately after being sworn in, Justice Maraga headed to his new office at the Supreme Court building in Nairobi, and he was received by his colleagues in the Supreme Court and members of the Judicial Service Commission. Acting presiding judge of the Supreme Court, Mohammed Ibrahim, handed over the instruments of power to Justice Maraga and welcomed him at the Supreme Court. His first duty as a Chief Justice will be to swear in the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission selection panel.
I hand over your duties as the President of the Supreme Court. And I worked with him in the Judicial Committee of Elections. We worked together and we continue. And I'm sure we'll do a great job. The Honorable Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Justice David Maraga, it really is a pleasure for me to be here on this occasion. We just have come from State House where the Honorable His Excellency the President facilitated and under the Constitution swore you in through the procedures of the Supreme Court, the Constitution, with our Chief Registrar running the procedure. And now we are back here, and we are so happy that we have a new Chief Justice.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you, the members of the Judicial Service Commission, the judges, Justice Kariuki, Justice Mwongo, Justice Ibrahim, who have held the mantle for about 4 months. We want to thank every one of you for the cooperation that we have had. The judiciary is an institution. Even in the absence of the Chief Justice, quite a number of business can still run. The only court that was affected is the Supreme Court because of quorum. But that now has been resolved, and in a few days we will have the Deputy Chief Justice. I just want to reiterate the speech I made at the State House, that we are going to work together with this team and the other judges and magistrates, together with the entire judiciary staff. You can all be very sure that there is nothing an individual can do as an individual. The judiciary as institutions, there is a leadership committee where the president of the Court of Appeal is, the principal judge, and the other heads of divisions that we are going to work together. So we look forward to working together as a team and serve the Kenyan people. The challenges are there, but we are up to that challenge, and we trust that with God's guidance, we'll be able to carry out the mandate that has been bestowed upon us. Once again, I want to thank you for your cooperation and your presence here, and look forward to working with you as we go on. Thank you very much.
New Chief Justice David Maraga, they are making his maiden speech after being sworn in. One of the most striking things in that placed that press conference that he was wearing the old conservative red robe that seemed to have been discarded by the Mutunga administration as the head of the judiciary. Let's now link up with KTN's Michelle Ngele, joining us live from our city center studio, has been following these events. And Michelle, one of the first things you were supposed to do as Chief Justice was to swear the IEBC selection panel. Do we know when that will be happening?
That will be taking place this afternoon at 2:30 p.m. and that will be Chief Justice David Maraga's first act in office to swear in the 9 members of the select panel of commissioners who will be mandated with the job of selecting the 7 IEBC commissioners. So that's one of the things that he will be doing this afternoon. But like you mentioned, Ben, it really stands out that Chief Justice David Maraga was wearing the red attire as opposed to the green attire, which is what judges of the Supreme Court have been wearing at least since Willie Mutunga brought that in. And a lot of questions have been asked. Is that symbolic that he will be bringing a totally new dispensation to the Supreme Court? Or, does it really not mean anything? We were able to speak to some judicial staff on what their thoughts were on his outfit. And while some feel, it probably does not make a difference, there is a large, portion of judicial staff who feel like this is symbolic of the fact that Maraga might not necessarily be starting off from where Willie Mutunga left off. It may be symbolic that he may be bringing quite a few changes to the Supreme Court. But that being said, Ben, Maraga does face quite a huge challenge ahead of him, that being the very high expectations that lawmakers have set for him. Many of them say that he must bring a completely new path to the judiciary to ensure that he's able to solve the corruption cartels, that he is able to unite the judiciary itself in terms of the supremacy wars between the old and the new judges in the judiciary, as well as unite the 3 arms of government, with that contention that has been that either the executive is intimidating the judiciary or the judiciary is bullying the legislature. So these are the things that many lawmakers expect David Maraga to tackle and bring changes with in the judiciary. Ben.
Michelle, you did mention that you did speak to some of the judicial officers there. What is the mood like as the new Chief Justice takes over for the next 4 years, seeing that as he is 66 years old, and especially with the fact that the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, is almost now at full capacity?
Absolutely. There is a lot of excitement in the Supreme Court. I mean, they have not had a president or a Chief Justice for about 4 months now, and it's been a very vigorous process of finding the new Chief Justice. And so before Maraga made his trip to the Supreme Court this morning as the Chief Justice, there were a lot of preparations taking place. Of course, the fact that his official car, for example, had to be, had to have a flag put on. That is the official flag signaling this is the official vehicle of the Chief Justice of Kenya. But also most of the judicial staff there were on their best behavior, Ben. Many of them saying they cannot wait to just shake his hand as the new Chief Justice. A large chunk of members of the judiciary also really respect Maraga. That is something that must be highlighted. So many of them are very happy for his achievement and cannot wait to welcome him in the judiciary. But even as that continues, many Kenyans also, are interested to find out whether Maraga will fulfill the promises he made before the JSC interview panel, among them being uniting judicial staff. And of course, he says he will be very transparent in informing Kenyans what his next step will be in the judiciary in the next week or the next 30 days at least. But even as we wait for him to do that, probably this afternoon, let's take a look at a video I compiled a bit earlier on what we do not know about Chief Justice David Maraga. As a young boy, Maraga attended Maranda High School in central Nyanza for 4 years. It was here that his leadership qualities were nurtured, having been a class prefect for most of the time. His former schoolmate, Polycarp Omolo Ochilo, now a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, describes him as a man of vision.
We met at Maranda Secondary School in 1968. So David was my classmate from Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, up to Form 4 when we sat for our level exams. So David was never in trouble that I remember for the 4 years we in school. We used to have very productive engagement and discussions of academic issues, understanding and doing things properly, as it were, which I think was the early foundation of foundations in which is beginning to show, is showing now.
Right. That the 64-year-old Court of Appeal judge is a staunch Seventh-day Adventist is no secret. In fact, he flatly told the Judicial Service Commission panel that he would not hear cases on Saturdays if appointed Chief Justice. In May 2012, he stunned Kenyans when he stood before TV cameras and swore by the Bible that he would never take a bribe. But was this all for the cameras?
No, I don't think it was a front. I think religion is a fundamental factor in rooting people's character, depth and understanding human relations, and fundamentally the doctrines of fairness, the doctrines of justice, the doctrine of that we are all created in the image of God and we are all the same before God. Because remember, he came from Kisii, I was from South Nyanza, we were in Maranda, which was central Nyanza. People don't understand that. That was close to 300 kilometers from where we came to this side of the country. So we had everybody there, people from Central Province, Western Province, Eastern Province, even a student from the coast. That was the beauty those days.
Perhaps it was that mixed environment that prepared him to work with people from different walks of life, having been stationed in various parts of Kenya throughout his career. His former workmates at the High Court in Nakuru, where he served as presiding judge for 2 years, say they were confident that Maraga would be nominated to the position of Chief Justice. Their joy perhaps an indication of his style of leadership.
First of all, Maraga rarely used his car, yeah? So he'll always walk to court. And when he's from court or when we meet in court, we go to the club for a drink, for a cup of tea. We'll just walk through the streets. Even before he was appointed, when he was a judge, you would meet him in the streets just walking around, and I'm sure people didn't know who it was.
His background is very humble. His practice was very straight, and his practice was what you see is what you get. And he was a disciplinarian, that one you must get. He's a person you could approach. He's a person who can guide you. For those ones who worked with him when we were younger, you could see that you grow with him.
And I'm happy about now he's a CJ. He was Justice Maraga, and I'm happy about him. I was excited to hear about him because I joined Maraga when it was Praveen Bauri, March 1995.
I knew Maraga as somebody, one, is very hardworking, is very articulate, and I knew him as someone who can be a CJ, the Republic of Kenya.
The decision by the Judicial Service Commission to nominate Justice David Maraga for the position of Chief Justice of Kenya has automatically brought him a footnote in the history of the Republic of Kenya.